I'm very glad to say that Nigel Farage, the leader of UKIP, joins us. Nigel, thanks for coming on. You're not exactly without other things to do, so thanks for coming on.
No, good morning.
Yeah, good morning to you. Now, I can pick holes in Cameron's speech, but I'm going to let you do so, so do so.
Well, you know, in life, we all get things wrong, and I think, David, you've learned that's
afraid I have, yes.
More than anybody.
But I hope I've learned not to do that in the future, but I tell you what, it's a big ask.
Yeah, but you've just done something on air, live. You've just said sorry.
Yeah.
And you know something? That's actually rather important in life. It shows contrition, and it shows an acceptance that you did something, you said something that was wrong.
Well,
now,
I couldn't defend myself, even if I was still at the bar and got a big brief fee, so I thought...
Yes, I think you would struggle.
I better chuck in the towel. Yeah, but, you know, at a certain point in life, you know, you say stuff and then suddenly you find your front page news beating ISIL, you know, you think, wow, little me, you know, there you go.
Now, let's just wind the clock back 5 years. And let's forget about Mr. Mellor, and let's think about David Cameron. So 5 years ago, no ifs, no buts, we will reduce immigration to the tens of thousands. And then they produced a leaflet by the million that was distributed all over the country that said, if we fail to get immigration down to tens of thousands, kick us out at the next election. All right? That's the backdrop to this. So we then get this big speech yesterday. I did not hear sorry once. I mean, Simon will agree, even the Labour Party under Ed Miliband have now apologised for opening up the doors in 2004 to 8 former communist countries. So that's my first point about David Cameron is he didn't apologise. He simply failed to acknowledge how horrendously wrong he'd got everything. Now, this speech was given by a man who overemphasised every syllable, who strained with his body to try and show the world that he actually meant what he was saying, but completely failed in it. David Cameron has always believed in the EU. David Cameron has always believed in the free movement of peoples. David Cameron has always supported the enlargement of the EU. In fact, he's been one of the biggest champions for Turkey to join the European Union. But he's been pushed by the electorate. He's been pushed by a massive change of public opinion. And I think partially he's been pushed by UKIP winning the Rochester by-election last week into saying something he never wanted to say and trying to get tough on migrant benefits. But there is a key word to the whole immigration debate. In fact, it dominates everything, and it's one of the reasons why, whilst there are Tories voting for us, as Simon will tell you, an awful lot of Labour people are now voting for us, as they did in Hayward and Middleton the other week. The word is control. And 7 to 8 out of 10 British people who don't have a fundamental objection to immigration per se, but what they want is for us to have a degree of control. And the con trick that Cameron tried to pull yesterday was he kept using the word control all through this speech. He said, with these measures, we have control over immigration, and that isn't true, because even though he's put on the table some proposals to limit migrant benefits, proposals, incidentally, which the polls this morning have already said they will veto. But even if he was able to pull that off, it doesn't change the fact that we continue to have an open door to nearly 500 million people.
Nigel, can I just say good morning? Good morning to you. It's Simon Danczuk here. It's interesting to speak to you. One of the points I wanted to raise with you, you know, and I'm conscious that you're playing politics with this. That's sort of inevitable, really. And I guess the public will wonder whether you would do any better than David Cameron or Ed Miliband were you to be in power in Britain in terms of immigration. But one particular point, particularly relevant from Greater Manchester, where I come from, and you might be able to clear it up for us. There's been reports up there, certainly about one of your business spokesmen, Amjad Bashir, who was caught it's alleged was caught employing illegal immigrants in his Manchester restaurant. Is that right, Nigel?
Well, there's no doubt that the business in which Amjad Bashir is a shareholder did get fined for employing some illegal immigrants.
So what would the public conclude from that? That a prominent member of UKIP actually has helped employ illegal immigrants, I suppose, is the allegation?
Well, the public could quite correctly conclude that a prominent member of UKIP was a shareholder in a business that did something it most certainly should not have done.
So it's more do as I say, not do as I do, sort of thing.
But of course, Simon, as you and I both know, if this country had a proper immigration policy and a proper work permit system, this would never have been allowed to happen. And I think we've had all the negatives about immigration, and perhaps I'm one of the people that has put out the negatives, the cost to primary school places, the pressure on public services, the fact we have to build one house every 7 minutes in this country just to cope with new migrants coming to Britain. But there is actually a different argument that we ought to be having, and that is that overwhelmingly that 70 to 80% of people who want control also want us to have ongoing a sensible, positive immigration policy. And if we had an immigration policy that didn't discriminate, as we now do, in favour of some countries against others, but we had the Australian-style point system where we could choose both the quantity and the quality of who comes to Britain. And if we have shortages in labour markets, well, that's fine. People get work permits, as they do for 190 countries around the world, and you come with a work permit, you show you have somewhere to stay when you arrive, you show you've got medical insurance, and you work for the period of that permit, and then you go home. And if we did those things, if we sorted those things out, the row, the debate over immigration, I think, would go away.
Nigel, can you answer me a question which rather baffles me, and that is, there's all this focus on the EU and people coming in from EU countries, but actually when you look at the immigration figures, there's the same number coming in from outside the EU. How would you get a grip of that?
Well, I mean, again, the government has actually tried to do something about this, and they've managed to get the numbers down slightly. No one's going to pretend this is easy, because there are things like overseas marriages, etc. What we cannot allow to happen are the student scams, are the bogus marriages, and actually, what we've got to do is we've got to make sure that people who are coming into this country, wherever they come from, regardless whether it's Romania or Pakistan or Australia, we've got to make sure that those people that are coming are bringing a skill set, are bringing, a trade of some kind, can speak the English language, and have clean criminal records.
Nigel,
and that is what we've got to do.
One last point, because obviously we come against a break shortly. What struck me about David Cameron's speech was that he had moved away from any attempt to stop the free movement of people as a principle, instead of which he just established rules that would stop, effectively, benefit claimants, benefit tourists coming here. But, of course, the problem of immigration to this country is not just whether people are going to work or whether they're not. It's the sheer scale of it. What we were saying earlier, the population of Rochdale, plus 50,000, came in last year. Do you think that makes it easier for you, when it comes to the election on the EU, that the Prime Minister has thrown in the towel on getting the free movement of people rule changed?
Yeah, I mean, we're back to where I started this conversation. If you continue to have free movement of people within the European Union, you cannot by definition have control, and it's control that the British electorate want. And Mr Cameron raised this idea of questioning free movement at about the time of the Clacton by-election. It's funny, by-elections appear to shift everybody's policy these days. And he's obviously been told by Mrs Merkel and Mr Juncker that it simply won't wash.
Nigel, thanks very much for that. That was Nigel Farage, leader of